Hi Cole, welcome to Biology. This is Plant Powered Pedal Pusher with your latest YouTube video on photosynthesis. Don't forget to like and subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications, and
View discretion is advised. You can say anything.
okay guys, so we're going to talk a little bit about a special process known as chemosynthesis, okay? Chemosynthesis is quite simply an alternative to photosynthesis. As we learned yesterday, photosynthesis requires some key ingredients, correct? It requires what? What do we need for photosynthesis to happen? Sunlight. What else?
Air.
Air, which has carbon dioxide in it. Very good.
Water.
And water, right? Those are the three main ingredients. Now, what happens if you don't have sunlight, okay? For example, there are organisms and plants that grow deep, deep down in the ocean, okay? And in other places where access to sunlight is very poor because of the refraction of the water, all right? So they actually practice what is known as chemosynthesis, okay? So chemosynthesis is quite simply, right, creating food using chemicals instead of sunlight. Okay? So it's the same process that a plant would undergo that lives up on Earth where it can reach the sun, right? On the surface of the planet. But they substitute some chemicals instead of the sunlight, and they synthesize those chemicals to make the glucose. So where does this occur? Typically deep in the ocean. Okay? Because there is low light deep in the ocean. So that's pretty much all you need to know about chemosynthesis, just that it is an alternative to photosynthesis and that it occurs deep in the ocean. Hey Cole, we came up with a joke for you because I know you need a bad Mr. Wiley joke at least once a day. So what do chloroplasts do to relax? They stroma the guitar. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a thylakoid membrane, okay? This is where photosynthesis happens, at least the first part, right? The light reactions. Okay, so this right here, this is not a chloroplast, okay? This is a thylakoid, okay? A single thylakoid, all right? And as we learned yesterday, they come in stacks, right? And those stacks are called grana, okay? And so there's bunches of these inside of a chloroplast, each one doing this little doohickey here. All right, and so what you'll see is you'll see a couple different things. You'll see these little green blobs, okay? They're green because they've got the chlorophyll in them, all right? And you're going to see some this red line right here, okay? We're going to label that. You're going to see some purple blobs inside the membrane and sort of along the, you notice they occur along this pathway here. And then you've got this eggplant looking thing here. Okay, looks like an eggplant. And then this one here looks like an eggplant too that's been cut in half and has a sort of a hollow channel. Those are membrane proteins as well. And then you've got this special little one right here, the special protein. We're going to label that. Okay? All right, so all of these, okay, so this right here, I'm going to circle that one, and then these here and here and here, okay, they are all part of this, and they are all called membrane proteins, okay? Which all that means is that they're proteins stuck in various places on the membrane, okay? And what you'll notice is that this red line sort of starts here, on the left and travels through all these membrane proteins, and it comes out into the stroma, right? Because remember, outside here, outside the thylakoid is the stroma, and so there's a little piece here that is, it's almost like a road that just dead ends, but whatever goes on the road just is going to go flying off into the stroma. That's important because that's what's going to happen. So it all starts right here, okay? All right, this first one is called, now this is a little confusing, so it's important to know that they're labeled in reverse order. It's a countdown. This first one is called photosystem 2. All right, that's where it starts. It actually starts in photosystem 2, and then the next one is called photosystem 1. So this same green blob over here, okay, is called photosystem 1. Okay, I know my lines on the top there are cut off a little bit, so you can just put it on those lines there. All right. Okay. Good, good. So, here in photosystem 2, that's where everything begins. And inside the photosystem, this green stuff, that's the chlorophyll. It is known as the pigment complex. Tyler, you getting these? All right. So the pigment complex. All right, pigment just means color, right? So when we talk about pigments, paint pigments, we talk about different colors. All right. Right here, attached to that first photosystem, right, photosystem 2, the one that occurs first, is a special enzyme. It's called the water splitting enzyme. All right, and it does exactly what its name says it does. It splits water molecules into their constituent particles, oxygen and hydrogen. All right. So we got the photosystem. We move along the line. We hit this little baby here. That is our well-known H+ ion pump. So it's our hydrogen ion pump. And we learned, what does a hydrogen ion pump do? Pumps
out all the hydrogen ions.
Pumps the hydrogen ions, exactly. Thus its name. Okay, so it's named a hydrogen ion pump because it pumps hydrogen ions. Okay? All right. This little protein here, this membrane protein, is also an enzyme, and it's got a special name called ATP synthase. Remember, we learned that enzymes end in ACE, A-S-E. Like when we did our lab, we worked with lactase, okay, which is an enzyme that breaks apart lactose. All right, ATP synthase, synth just means make. So this, as you can derive from the name, makes ATP. Because remember, the thylakoids supply ATP to the Calvin cycle. So they have to make it in order to produce it and give it to the Calvin cycle. So that's where that happens. And we'll get into what happens where. I want you to know all these different parts. And then lastly, we got the red line, right? The red line starts way over here, travels, and then off into the stroma. That is known as the electron transport chain. Okay? We call that, for short, ETC. So when we talk about the ETC from now on, I'm talking about that electron transport chain. And you want to guess what the electron transport chain does?
It transports the electrons.
Transports the electrons, exactly, right? So the electron is going to start here, and it's going to travel all this way, and then finally, whoosh, the bus, right? This is the NADPH. The bus leaves and goes into the stroma. Okay? So we'll get into the details of how all that happens in a bit. All right? But this would be a good place for us to take a break.